This is Work of the Imagination, a story written by myself. The request for this work comes from Barbarathefander over on AO3, asking for a Logan-centered story where Roman takes a reluctant Logan to the imagination, only for Logan to get captured by the Dragon Witch. Thank you to Barbarathefander for leaving this amazing request, and I do advise you all to take a check at the description for any content warnings, as this can get a little exciting. Thank you so much, and let's continue on with our story. Logan didn't have many weaknesses. He strived for excellence, reaching as close to perfection as he could possibly obtain. Still, that did not exclude him from flaws, one of those being Roman's smile. He had been working at his desk, papers strewn across the surface and a laptop displaying an ungodly amount of tabs. It didn't matter what he had been working on, for no matter what he tried, it seemed to end in failure. Logan groaned and dropped his head onto the desk with a dull thud. That was when Roman strolled in, with eyes shining brighter than the sun itself. "Greetings, Specs," he declared whilst taking a seat atop the paper-littered desk. Logan rolled his eyes, but couldn't help the hint of fondness that slipped into his voice. "Salutations, Roman." His eyes remained trained on his work. "Do you have a reason for your visit?" "Is it wrong to want to visit my favorite nerd?" "No, but I'm currently in the midst of a project." Logan raised his head to gesture to the mess that was his so-called project. In all honesty, it was more dozens of compositions than a single idea, each with an unclear end. Roman plucked a sheet from the desk, ignoring Logan's protest as he turned the paper over. "How long have you been working on this?" "Not long." The prince raised a brow, clearly unconvinced. "I'm no genius, Logan, but I'm aware when you're lying." "It's really not a big deal." "How long?" Roman's voice edged on concern now, and he gently set the paper back onto the desk. Logan lowered his gaze, his guilt shining through like a child caught stealing from the cookie jar. 13 hours. 13 hours? That's nearly half the day! "I permitted myself a 20-minute break," Logan said, as if that were enough to compensate for overworking. It wasn't. Roman pursed his lips, fully taking in the sight of the logical side. His hair flopped loosely over his forehead, disheveled as Logan had not cared to fix it after a sleepless night. Sporting nothing other than an oversized t-shirt and an old pair of sweatpants, he barely looked himself. The thick-rimmed glasses upon his face served as the only indication to Logan's regular appearance. "Oh dear," Roman muttered, shaking his head, and Logan raised a brow. "This simply won't do." "What are you talking about? I'm absolutely fine." "Fine is a pitiful term when you can be wonderful, darling." Roman offered a gentle smile, then ushered Logan out of his chair. "Come on now. You are going to get yourself cleaned up." "Roman, no excuses. You are in desperate need of a break, and I know the perfect place." Logan shot him a doubtful glance, though Roman returned an equally effective smile. "Please, Logan, just this once. I'd hate to see you spending the whole day surrounded by deadlines and burdens unimaginable." A sigh passed Logan's lips. "Fine. Allow me 30 minutes, and I will be ready." "Perfect! I shall see you just outside the imagination, then." Roman crossed to the door with a grin. "Until then, Specs." The door was pulled shut, and as the click of the latch sounded, Logan got to work on tidying up. No more than half an hour later, and Logan had arrived at the door. Sporting a black button-up and tie, he appeared much more of himself, and Roman found himself smiling at the man before him. "Our adventure awaits." He gestured to the door, and Logan shot him a hesitant glance before stepping inside. The world of the imagination was enough to bring a gasp from Logan's throat. Though he was well aware of what lay inside, he had never possessed the time to enter the realm himself. A clear sky shone above them, and meadows filled with flowers covered the bountiful lands. Though he had tried to appear disinterested, it was very clear that he was captivated by the space. Logan hadn't even realized he'd been gaping until Roman lightly tapped his shoulder, guiding him forward with a wave of his hand. "Come on," he said. "We haven't even reached the best part." Logan failed to understand how anything could appear more fascinating than the land before him, though followed Roman anyways. Through the meadows they passed until a trail led into a small forest. Trees stretched endlessly into a landscape of green, the scent of earth emerging from the foliage. While Roman continued to lead, Logan found himself glancing up into the canopy. From thin branches sat birds in the midst of their bright melody. They descended from the treetops to swirl around the two in a flock of wings and feathers. Roman laughed as one soared past his head, the air formed from its beating wings brushing past the prince's hair and leaving it flowing in the wind. He quickly brushed it back, though turned to Logan with that bright smile he could never seem to grow bored of. "We're close." He grinned and held out a hand. "It's just around this bend." Logan hesitated at Roman's outstretched hand, glancing at it as if it were a foreign object. Human contact was not something he much cared to participate in, the action of which he found to be almost unfamiliar altogether. He glanced up to find Roman's smile wavering. Logan was fully aware the creative side would not force him to do anything if he truly didn't wish to, though something about shrinking away from such contact seemed awfully disdainful. It was then that Logan noticed he had been standing in silence for a decent while, his need to make a decision quickly becoming more apparent. Again, he met those deep emerald eyes, and something within him sparked. He would give anything to see the shine to those eyes and the stunning smile that always followed. Logan took the prince's hand, and Roman shot him a glance both thankful and full of something else Logan couldn't quite comprehend. He supposed it ought to be good, as a gentle smile had come to settle on Roman's lips as he tugged them forward. The last moments of the trek were more tolerable than Logan would have thought. Everything he may have been on the fence about when it came to entering such an unpredictable space seemed to be the exact thing that made it so enticing. No stacks of papers nor calculations could lead to something as imaginative as this. Roman halted at the end of the trail, their path interrupted by a dense wall of vines. They cascaded from the trees, with flowers sprouting at the edges. Indigo, Logan noticed. The flowers bloomed with Logan's favorite color, and whether this was intentional or not, he was unsure. "Prepare to be amazed," Roman winked. Logan rolled his eyes, though an anticipatory smile emerged on his lips. "We shall see." He was pulled gently through the wall of vines, and as he emerged on the other side, any remark he may have had was stolen from his throat. The light rush of water filled his ears, and with it a cool spray of mist hit his face. Logan couldn't help but gasp, the waterfall placed in front of him sparkling in a way he could only describe as magical. Butterflies sporting the same indigo color as the flowers drifted past his vision, one of which came to flutter on the back of his hand. A hand was placed on his shoulder, and Logan turned with eyes wide. "Roman, it's perfect." "I'm glad you like it." Roman's eyes softened. "Here, I have one more thing to show you." Logan raised a brow, curious, and gladly allowed Roman to guide him around the waterfall. The rock was carved smooth from the constant movement of water, enabling a small passageway hidden beneath curving vines and tall grasses. Roman pushed aside the vegetation and beckoned Logan into the passageway. He followed close behind and flinched at the spray of water that sprinkled on his hair as he ventured behind the waterfall. Here, the splashing water dimmed to a muffled drip, peaceful even in the midst of what lay just outside. "All right, from this point on, no peeking," Roman whispered from his side, bringing up his hands to cover the logical side's eyes. Logan sighed, though no malice was hidden within it. The prince led him through what seemed to be an endless array of turns before Logan was brought to a standstill. He eagerly swatted at Roman's hands, but the prince only chuckled. "Patience, Specs. You were the one who wanted to stay at your desk in the first place." "Yes, but that was only before I knew about this world that you've been hiding." "Hiding?" Logan didn't need to see to know the prince was gasping with a hand to his heart. "You have just never cared to join me." "I suppose that's true." The logical side smirked, and Roman finally lifted his hands. Glowing, brighter than even the sun, were hundreds of crystals. Logan gasped, drinking in the sight of stunning violets and yellows, greens that shone the same emerald as Roman's eyes, and blues sparkling just like the waterfall. A smile wider than Logan ever thought he could make emerged on his face as he turned to face Roman. His eyes were alight with curiosity, the mere thought of exploring such intricate crystals leaving him having to keep himself from rushing over. "Well, Logan, what do you think? Better than hours at a desk?" "Yes, 1,000,000 times yes." The logical side glanced back to the crystals, a sight similar to a kid in a candy store. "May I?" "Knock yourself out, Teach." Logan didn't have to be told twice. He rushed deeper into the cave, shouting several thank yous behind his shoulder. Every inch of space was filled with a glittering paradise, the gems as unique as one's fingerprint. Logan delighted in the complexities of such formations, bouncing from crystal to crystal and something almost comparable to a frenzy. A flick of his hand left a pencil and paper held tightly in his palm, scratching away as he recorded several observations. "This is incredible," Logan muttered between scribbling down sentences. "I simply cannot comprehend how all this came to be. These crystal formations, they're more intricate than I ever could have imagined." Roman sighed. "Well, it took a bit longer than I thought. I didn't realize conjuring took so much time with objects like this." The logical side froze at this, whipping around to face Roman with eyes wide. "You made this?" "Of course. I figured you deserved to see something truly spectacular if I was taking you away from that work you seem to love so much." The words left Logan's mouth, the only thing echoing in his mind being the thought of Roman. Roman, who had spent days, possibly even weeks, creating this universe. Roman, who had entered his room knowing full well that the logical side might not even agree to come. Roman, who despite everything had made this for him, and him only. "You okay, Teach?" Roman tilted his head. "You're looking a little red." Yes. Why wouldn't I be?" "No reason," the prince hummed, gaining a playful glint to his eye. "You just seemed a little flustered, is all." "Falsehood." Logan tried desperately to erase the rising heat to his cheeks. "I don't fall prey to such emotions." "Sure," Roman said with a smile, though didn't press further. He didn't have to. From the excitement that shone on Logan's face each time he grazed over the realm was enough to leave Roman's heart fluttering. The way he inspected each crystal not only was calculated, but possessed an enamored curiosity. Roman only wished now that Logan would look at him the same way. They remained in the cave for quite some time, the final flick of Logan's pencil ending what was a 23-page documentation. Not that Roman had been counting. With a soft nod, Roman had led them out of the passage where the sun shone in bright contrast to the shadows of the cave. The two began their course back out of the imagination, the prince fully intending to keep his promise of not holding Logan for too long. Through towering trees and blooming flowers, a comfortable silence settled between the two, all until Logan turned to look at the prince. "Thank you again," he said. "I truly cannot say it enough." "You have no need. I just thought a break would be good for you." But it was more than good. It was heavenly, Roman. I assure you, this meant the world to me. Roman couldn't help but smile, his heart melting instantly. "Well," the tips of his ears grew pink, and he fiddled with his fingers to dampen the rising anxiety in his mind. "You're welcome to come here any time you like. I'd love to spend some time with you again, if you wish to," he quickly added. Logan met his eyes and offered a gentle smile. "I would gladly do such things." Roman's heart soared. He tried his best to conceal the pure joy pooling in his veins, and instead flashed the other a bright smile. "Perfect." They reached the door to the imagination faster than expected, fond conversations having filled the time in between. Roman happily opened the door, stepping outside and holding it open for the one before him. He bowed with a grin. "After you?" Logan rolled his eyes, something incredibly fond flashing in his expression. "If you say so, Prince." He moved to follow in Roman's steps, though as he reached the threshold, the door slammed shut. Creaking on its hinges, a deep click sounded through the imagination that left Logan's blood running cold. He reached for the doorknob, testing it with a light tug. His stomach dropped when he found it locked. Again, he pulled, yet the door refused to give. "Roman?" he called. "What's going on?" No answer, and whether it was the imagination muffling the sound beyond, or the fact that Roman had simply left him, Logan would never know. A smooth voice interrupted him before he ever had the chance to call again. My, you're new around here." Logan whirled around, stilling as another man strolled forward, a feline smirk placed on his face. A dark cloak was wrapped around his shoulders, the tips adorned with a deep magenta hem. Unfamiliar at first to Logan's eye, though as the man revealed Talon's hand speckled with scales, the same magenta as his cloak, Logan understood. The Dragon Witch. He took a step back, his distance between the sorcerer waning. The stories Roman had told, ones of all the man before him had done, it was enough to leave Logan wishing for a weapon at his side. "Now why do you look so afraid of me?" the Dragon Witch hummed, advancing closer and grinning as Logan took an equal step back. "You don't even know why I've come here." "I didn't intend on asking." The Dragon Witch raised a brow, almost amused. "That's not a choice you get to make." "Choices are a funny thing. Lock the door, and now you have no choice but to stay. Get rid of the prince, and now you have no choice but to face me alone." Logan narrowed his eyes. "I think you forget that refusal is just a good choice as any. And I think your stubbornness will be your downfall." Magenta light flashed within the Dragon Witch's eye, and roots broke from the ground, snaking up Logan's ankles and torso. You forget that I am just as powerful as your precious prince. This realm is just as much mine as it is his." The roots circled tighter, and from them sprouted an array of thorns. They pierced his skin, and from it a sharp sting surfaced in his veins. With a snap, the roots receded, replaced by the pounding in Logan's head. He struggled to sort through his thoughts, everything foggier than it had been just before. "Run," his mind screamed, and Logan did so before that too became a clouded thought. With the door inches away, he strained to reach the handle. A pain unimaginable stopped him before he could wrap his fingers around the knob. Logan cried out, doubling over as his veins filled with a liquid fire. It was as each breath was stolen from his lungs, all while everything continued to burn. He was engulfed by the flames, everything screaming with a searing intensity. He clutched at his chest, begging the sensation to vanish as tears pricked his eyes. The dragon witch strolled to his side, bending to grip Logan's face tight in his fingers. "Like I said, you have no choices." He waved his hand, and the pain suddenly receded, dormant. "Those thorns injected a poison that I am currently keeping from reaching your heart. With each moment you test me, I will let it flow just a bit farther down your bloodstream. Your pain now is only the beginning." Logan couldn't find the strength to answer, for his body ached with each breath. Sleep tugged at his senses, something he knew he shouldn't give in to, especially now. Though as the edges of his vision grew black, the pull became much more enticing. Logan felt his limbs growing heavy, any instinct he had to fight slipping through his hands all too quickly. The dragon witch grinned as his eyes fluttered close. "A shame that you were so easy to catch. I would have thought someone with your spark would have put up more of a fight." Logan could only wince, unable to find the strength to flinch away from the dragon witch's hold. He fought each second to maintain his thoughts, to stay awake but a moment longer. The ache in his bones won over. Only when Logan fell limp did the dragon witch loosen his hold. And just like that, the logical side was his. This concludes part 1 of Work of the Imagination. This work is split into 2 parts only because my storage right now is being a little finicky and not allowing me to post the work in bulk. So just look ahead and you should see the second part soon. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time for the continuation of this work.